most retarded wave I've ever done. Yep, my friend with the Harley, he knows what's up. Alright guys, East Coast Octane here. Going on a nice ride on a beautiful day. I figured I'd do a little moto vlogging. So I got a story for you. I got a motorcycle story. I figured I'd tell you about my first speeding ticket on a motorcycle. Which is an interesting story. So I guess to do that I'll have to tell you about buying my first motorcycle, because believe it or not, those are the same story. So I was looking for a motorcycle and had caught my eye on an SV 650S. You've seen it. That silver one was my first motorcycle, right? It's a good way to get into motorcycling without being on something too slow. I'd done my research and found that would be a good place to start out. So I'd gone on Craigslist, looked around, and found a really nice one. I was actually going on a little trip with my girlfriend, and looked at where we were going to see if there were any good bikes on Craigslist, and there were. I found this one. It was a good deal, good price. Called that guy up, set up a meeting time, and this was, so you gotta keep in mind, I had not taken the motorcycle safety course yet. I didn't even have my motorcycle license yet. So all I had was, I really wanted a motorcycle. I had ridden on, the only experience I had with motorcycles is a friend of mine had a little 250 Ninja, and I had ridden it around a parking lot a couple times. Like, he had it and was like, hey, why don't you take it around the parking lot, try it out. So what I did is I called up a friend of mine who is actually the guy riding in front of me, who has an SFV 650, which is very similar to the SV 650S. I called him up and said, hey man, I'm going to look at this bike this weekend, and I was like, can I ride your bike around the neighborhood just so I can get used to it, so I know what it's supposed to feel like? And he said, yeah, sure, let me ride his bike around. I had a helmet and gloves, just so you know. I'd gotten that part out of the way, but helmet, gloves, and jacket, we're good to go. Or no, I just had a helmet and gloves. I had not gotten a jacket yet, because I was just getting ready to take the safety course. I had a helmet and gloves, that was it. And so I had ridden his bike around the neighborhood and was like, alright, I've got a feel for it. I can stop and go without killing myself. And I know what the bike should feel like, because they're about the same motor in the bikes. So I knew what the bike should feel like. And then it was up in the mountains, and it was in the fall. So it was cooling off, and I was like, well damn, I need a motorcycle jacket, and I need to not freeze to death on the way home if I buy this bike, because it was like a 4 or 5 hour drive home. So I went on Craigslist and picked up a nice winter motorcycle jacket that I actually still wear. It's a nice jacket. I picked up a jacket. I had all my gear ready. Kind of knew how to ride a bike. I had to go Friday after work. I got off work early before we left and had to go to the DMV and get my motorcycle learner's permit, because I didn't have that yet. Got my learner's permit, then went on vacation with my girlfriend. Saturday, we went to look at this bike, and it looked good. Like, it looked pretty good. It actually needed some little things, but I don't mind working on stuff if it's a deal. So like I did just the clutch cable while I was there, and just some little stuff. And finally I said, okay, which actually made the guy think I had been riding a long time because I knew how to work on the bike already just from knowing how to work on cars. So anyway, I get geared up and he's let me take it for a test drive, which I got on it. Not a problem. I've practiced or whatever on the other bike, so it was good. I almost hit a plant, but it was all good. They all said fine. It was actually funny. My girlfriend told me they asked how long it had been since I last rode, and she told them, yeah, it's been a little while. And they said, yeah, it takes a second to get you back in the feel of it. So thanks for my girlfriend for not throwing me under the bus on that one and making that guy realize that he just let somebody who's basically never ridden a motorcycle take his bike out on a public street. So I'm going out on the bike, and really my only goal was, I knew the brakes worked, I knew the clutch worked, and everything else I can kind of visually inspect. I just wanted to make sure I could go through all the gears, and it felt like about the right kind of power. It's my first bike, so I'm not gonna like nitpick. And the miles were good, so that wasn't a big deal. So I start going, and I'm just going through gears. And this is actually pretty far out in the country, so I thought I had left the city, or like that town I was in. I was pretty confident that I had left the town. Started to open it up a little bit just so I could get into 6th gear, and I saw a sheriff going the other way. I didn't think a thing of the sheriff going the other way, like not even a thing about it. I was just like, oh, sheriff, kept riding. Apparently the sheriff did not like the speed I was going at all, because he turned around, and I was just cruising. At that point I was actually looking for a place to turn around. I was ready to go back. So I'm going, and then blue lights, and I'm like, ah, shit, I got my motorcycle license literally the day before I had gotten my motorcycle license. So I'm like, shit, He pulls me over, but I didn't think it'd be an issue because it wasn't my bike. I didn't have, I was like, this is a misunderstanding. He'll tell me, hey, slow down, So I talked to him. He looked at I didn't even have a license in my state. They give you a piece of paper at the DMV that's a temporary license. So I had to give him that. And then he was like, do you have papers for this bike? And I'm like, well, fuck no, I'm test riding it. I got my motorcycle license yesterday. I'm test riding the bike. I'm not from this area. So he was like, how fast you were going? I'm like, no, I have no idea. I am trying to just go through the gears on the bike to make sure they work. And, I'm just making sure the bike runs and works properly. So then the cop, the cop, first off, he says, I'm surprised you even stopped. Most of you guys just run. And I was just like, yeah, well, I'll keep that in mind for next time. But yeah, then he actually does write me a ticket for speeding, which I thought was bullcrap. He probably just did it mainly because I'm from out of town and it was free money for him, basically, because they assume I'm not going to go to court for that. So he did give me a ticket. I mean, he was reasonably polite, but just the fact that he said, I'm surprised you even stopped. Most of you guys just run. I was like, then why even turn around if you think I'm just going to run? Let me go. And he gave me a ticket. Get this, though. 15 miles an hour over, and I was on basically a sport bike. Like, come on. And that's what I was actually doing. He gave me a ticket for what I was doing. He did not reduce it for me. He gave me a ticket for 15 over on a sport bike, not even in town. Which, I mean, sure, speeding, whatever, but that's bullshit. And then, get this though, the day got better because I was sitting there and I had cut the power to the bike. Like, I had kill switched it, but I had not turned the key off, so my lights were on that whole time. And this bike had been sitting for a little while, so the battery was not up to par. So while I'm getting my ticket, the headlights are freaking killing the battery on the bike. Even though it didn't take that long, by the time the cop pulls out, my bike won't start. And I'm like, shit. And get this, so yeah, the bike won't start. I call my girlfriend, have the guy who I'm buying it from come up. And actually, it wasn't even the guy I was buying it from. It was like his friend or something who didn't even know how to ride bikes. You want to go up or? So anyway, yeah, it was his friend. He didn't even have any idea. So he came and we had to jump off the bike, like, which was fine. But then the problem was I was like nervous. I was having a pain in the ass and all that shit. I started stalling the freaking motorcycle, and I learned after I got home and stuff, the chain was just a little loose. So in those, if you have the chain loose, it gets like a jerkiness. So it just sucked. I stalled it like a ton of times trying to get the damn thing going, and every single time we had to pull the seat off and watch out for that squirrel. We had to pull the seat off and jump it. It took freaking forever. Once I got it back to the place we were looking at it, I ran and got a battery for it, and it started. Rode it around the block a few more times just to make sure everything was good. And the guy gave me, $100 off for having to put a battery in it and all that shit. But yeah. And then the real fun part is, so keep in mind, this is still like the first time I'm really riding a motorcycle on public streets. I still had to ride it home, and it was a good like 4.5 hour drive all the way home, I think. But we split it. We drove like an hour or so that day, and then stayed with a friend. And the next day I rode. First day owning a motorcycle, I rode it basically all day on the highway to get home. So, fun story of getting my first bike and my first motorcycle ticket. If you're wondering, I did get out of that ticket. I didn't have to. I had to pay, court costs and stuff. But what I did is, since it was kind of a rural town where I got the bike, after getting a ticket, you're going to have local lawyers send you send you letters asking to hire them to get rid of your ticket. What I did is I took all the letters I got, which was only a handful because it was so rural, and there were 3 or 4 of them, and I took them all and just picked the one that had the address closest to the courthouse. I figured that guy would know somebody and be able to help me out. So I called him, and yeah, he helped me out, and he said, yeah, it shouldn't be an issue, and we got it dropped. They just wanted my money. So yeah, and that's how I got my first bike. And my first and hopefully only motorcycle ticket. But alright guys, I'm getting back close to the house, so East Coast Octane out of here, and I'll see you guys in the next video.